Hi everyone. Thank you very much for coming to hear my talk. Um, every company needs its own GTP, and hopefully you will see why as we go through the slides. A few things about me. Uh, I work as a competitive data scientist for H2O. That's an interesting title. It means that part of my job is to go out there and since my company creates software for predictive analytics, I try to see what works and what doesn't in a competitive context and make certain I feed that back in the work that we do. Make certain we deliver top data science products. I have a PhD in ensemble methods in machine learning, and I'm not sure if people are aware from Kaggle. It's a platform that hosts data science competitions. I used to be ranked #1 in this platform. I have participated in over 220 different challenges, and but what I take away from this is that I have been able to see what works and what doesn't for different problems, and hopefully I have been able to feed that back to the work that we do. I'm not as active anymore. Life happened later. My son was born, but I still try to keep in touch with the field as best as I can. A few things about the company I work for. Its mission is to democratize AI. They create products in the AI space. Specifically today, I will be talking about how H2o.ai democratizes generative AI and products related in that space. Many top companies users who have a big heritage of creating open source software. This has allowed us to have a very big data science community of data professionals or enthusiasts. 2 million people are using our products. Our company really strives for getting the best possible results in any machine learning tasks, and that's why it hires some of the top Kaggle competitors that are out there. The current world #1 is actually working for us right now, specifically designing products for generative AI. Not me, I'm no longer #1. That's in the past. I would like to talk a little bit about large language models and get some definitions out of the way before we talk a little bit about the products that specifically my company is creating and offers to the public for free. So you may have heard generative AI. This primarily refers to a collection of algorithms that represent data artifacts, and have the ability to create new content, novel content out of these data artifacts. For example, input text generates completely new text, or input images or text generate completely new images and text. Foundational model is a term that I think you may hear very commonly in this space. It refers again to large machine learning models that are trained on unlabeled data using a transformer algorithm, which is typically, it's a neural network, a deep learning type of algorithm. These are normally models built for general purposes, but then you can fine-tune them in order to become better in certain tasks. And this is what this slide is about. It shows you that a foundational model is trained on some very large, potentially corpuses of data, and then we can tailor it. It may not necessarily, for example, be a conversational model, or good at generating code, or good for sentiment analysis. Normally, these are steps that you take on top of this foundational model, and it undergoes a fine-tuning process in order to make them better for this type of tasks. Large language models are foundational models that are specifically designed for large language processing. And GPT, which you may have heard a lot lately, is a specific type of LLM that is specifically designed to predict an X token loss, which is a bit different than how previous LLMs were doing that. Can be very good for, and ChatGPT is actually using this as a conversational application. Why large language models? They can have a variety of different applications. They can be very useful to businesses. You can create chatbots and virtual assistants. That's probably the most popular application I've seen. Can create personalized experience for your customers. Text summarizations. Sometimes you have tons of data. You need to be able to get a summary quickly in order to increase productivity. Content creation, very commonly used in marketing, helping creating campaigns, slogans. Sentiment analysis, very commonly used to analyze reviews. Is this positive review, negative review? What is it about? Code generation, very good to increase productivity of people that work in the IT sector. Grammar check, that's very good for me. I make a lot of mistakes. Training, translation between different languages. And this is just a small sample of things that you can do. They're really very useful, and that is why we think every company, no matter what they do, they can benefit in some way or form by using LLM models. A small history of how we got to H2o GPT, which is our LLM offering, which I will talk extensively about in the next slides. We started with sequence-to-sequence models, predicting the next sequence. Then BERT came along, different transformer model, bidirectional encoder. Again, different laws tried to uncover different mask tokens. Then came autoregressive language modeling with GPT. ChatGPT was built on top of GPT. These models are privately hosted. They are not open source. And this is what our key differentiation is with what H2o is trying to do. It tries to democratize AI. We've made GDP type of models available to the public. We have made them commercially available and can be easily installed and used on-prem without actually ever the data leaving from you. These are some possible steps you could use while you are building your LLMs. As I mentioned, it starts always with a foundational model, that large model that is built on some generic, very big data like the pile, and understands general context. Then it undergoes the fine-tuning process. It becomes more tailored to specific tasks. For example, it can become more conversational or better at generating code or other tasks. Potentially, you can now transition from an X token loss to actually incorporating human feedback, and that can actually be important to improve the performance of these models. You can easily understand why. If I can give an input text, how are you today? And the answer could be, I'm fine, thanks. Or I could reply, wonderful. And both are credible answers, but if you just try to match the output text, the second answer might not give a very good result. So actually including a human in the loop might be important to improve performance of these models. Our company works a lot on trying to improve performance of this model, and this is a type of training that we incorporate. Furthermore, these data are trained in the past, so you need a way to keep, it's very costly to keep retraining these models, so you need to find a way to feed new information. So creating a database where you're able to add additional data even scrape the web and add new information is actually very important in order to keep having those models updated at low cost. And memory refers to being able to track previous conversations or inputs while you try to give better answers. I'm going to skip this slide. It shows how the fine-tuning process goes. I just want to give you an example of what a non-fine-tuning model would look like versus a fine-tuned model. So I took a general Pythia data set, foundational model, and I just asked, I have a headache, what may be causing it, and I got a pretty inconsiderate response out of this general model. But then I fine-tuned that same model with a medical data set I found. It's called WebMD. It's available. You can find it on Kaggle. And now I got an output that is much more tailored to what you would expect from you would see in the healthcare industry. I'm sorry to hear you are going through these headaches because call you, and then giving you some results. So you can see the difference here. This is a model that is tailored to this industry and can be much more useful. That virtual assistant can now be much more useful, have more empathy in this case to the industry that you're working. H2o GTP is our, before we go to that, why we wanted to make H2o GTP available. There are a lot of limitations from all the popular LLMs you see out there. They're normally hosted by companies. There are data privacy concerns because you have to send the data to them. And they might also use the data you are sending them to train and improve their models further. And there have been examples where sensitive data of companies have been used to retrain these models. You normally don't have much ability to customize these models because although obviously there have been changes and improvements, but still you don't have the same level of customization that you would have if you were owning this model in your own laptop, for instance. Cost and scalability can be a factor. Again, access and availability, you are dependent to downtime or limited availability of the host. And this is why our company wanted to make an offering which is open source, is free, is commercially available, and addresses these needs. It's flexible. You can install it anywhere, even on-prem. You can install it on clouds, anywhere you want. Obviously, it's cost efficient, it's free, and you can scale it easily. And you have full control of how you want to customize it. People keep asking me, do data come out if I use your tool? No. You can download it on your laptop, close Wi-Fi, pull out the internet cable, nothing gets out. You can have your own GTP in your own laptop. So H2o GTP, essentially, you can test it online in the link below, and it refers to a series of components that help democratize large language models. What we have done is we found all the available foundational models out there that we've seen. They have very good and credible performance. We have fine-tuned them. We have made the code and the data available that we use to fine-tune models, to make them conversational, to make them able to output code and better on a series of different tasks. We created a UI where you can actually use and experiment with this tool, but also have it locally. And you can also talk with the chatbot, and we have wrapped all of this on top. You can easily use, there's a Python API where you can actually use all the functionalities of these tools. At the same time, we offer functionalities to upload data, like documents. You can summarize them. You're querying them. You can query them, and I can give you here a small example. Here I asked, what is big data London, and it gave me some, I think, a good response about what it is. And then I actually took the brochure that includes all the talks, and I asked it to summarize, and it gave me the summary, which is actually quite credible. It even lists some of the speakers. I was sad to see I didn't make the cut, but maybe next time. And then I ask a specific question: can you tell me which talks are relevant to big data? And it gave me some suggestions. And all what you see here, you can easily have it locally for as many documents as you want. Could be hundreds. So it can really help, to increase productivity and cover many of the things we've actually seen before as the benefits of LLMs. Now, I talked about fine-tuning, and which we think is actually very important in order to be able to make these models useful. We have created a tool which we call the LLM Data Studio, which does exactly that. It provides a framework for you and a series of functionalities to fine-tune those foundational models further. The way it works is you input a data set. It has a series of questions and answers. In this case, you can see a sample of that medical data set I used. You select a foundational model which will be your base, and then you can control a number of different hyperparameters which are primarily related to neural networks and are state-of-the-art to be able to give you the best performance and fairly quickly. And then you can create different experiments and see different results. You can compare, you can see how the training goes. You can compare the losses and different metrics. And you can also export that model to Hugging Face once finished. You can connect from there directly and make this available to the community. Or keep it to yourself. You can even use it on Kaggle or Google Colab if you want. And that's basically it. Happy to take any questions on this point if you have. Again, I just wanted to very briefly mention, perhaps, that both the H2o GTP and the LLM Studio are available on GitHub for free. You can download them and you can use them locally. And I could also show them in our booth. If you come later, our booth is there. You can play a bit with them and see how they work. Oh.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, really interesting. How does this rank on the leaderboards? Just because I had a quick look and I couldn't find the H2o GPT on the Hugging Face leaderboards.
Right. So I don't exactly remember the final ranking. So the question was how it ranks. Obviously, we have different GTPs. So, for example, I think our best performing one is the one that is on top of the 70 billion of Llama 2. Generally, the output is very good. Is not as good as GPT, but if considering what you get, right, free, open source, on-prem, you would see that actually it's pretty close to that performance. And again, free, open source, on-prem, data never leaves. You can't beat that. This is what I think.
Sorry, just to follow up on that. So Llama, the newest version of Llama is also open source, I think. What's the...
So the difference is
Yeah.
what we do is the fine tuning process that we add on top of that, and we also wrap it on top of a Hugging Face transformer. So you can use it, you can use it. You can use the fine-tuned version of that. So the difference is the fine-tuning that we do on top of that, and all the other applications that come with it, like uploading the documents, summarize them, ability to query, ability to access the web. There is also a functionality to augment the results.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. Are you planning for any specialized models for a lot of applications such that they do not require the lengthy process of fine-tuning and use the specialized version instead?
We think that the fine-tuning process is actually not as lengthy. There are techniques that. So the question was if we plan simpler methods than the fine-tuning of these models that can be costly. I think training the foundational model is very costly, obviously. These models are very big. The fine-tuning with the techniques that have come out, like low-rank approximations, you can easily change the weight of these models fairly quickly and with small data. If you have a nice curated data set that is on point, is clean, and it's exactly designed as you want it to fit well in a specific application, the process of fine-tuning these models is not as expensive. It's not actually expensive. Within a few iterations, that initial foundational model can quickly be transformed into the model that you want to use within your business. Going maybe a bit next on the slides, you might find interesting different techniques that you could use in order to leverage the most out of these models. Because how you actually ask the question, it does matter in order to get the best results. For example, really adding the step-by-step line is actually very important. I have found it very important in order to give me an output that is very, very well explained and potentially supported by sources used, especially if you also add that line. And it can be very useful. So this is something you can consider as well, different techniques to use in order to get the best out of these models. All right.
Can you talk more about why open source?
I mean, why my company does this open source? I think the company was always open source oriented, the one I work for. They always felt, I I feel the data science community in general is a community that is generous. You know, it has been very open. I think many of us have become data scientists, you know, because we learned from others that they're willing to share the knowledge freely online. And I think the company has that heritage as well. So most of the products of the company are actually open source. They do, H2o.ai wants to democratize AI and make it available. Obviously, some of our products are also proprietary, but many of them, many important tools that we have are open source. Is our contribution to the community, you know, leveling up the space.
Thank you. Me again. In the spirit of open source, do you have wrappers or abstractions for fine-tuning these models, like SDKs or APIs that do these kinds of things with H2O AI framework?
The code is available that we use for fine-tuning these models, but it's also very similar to the functionality that we use within the fine-tuner that you saw, which I didn't go in great detail, but I think it's quite self-explanatory if you see it. A lot of configurations about, you know, neural networks, you know, optimizing, you know, the training parameters, controlling things like even post like temperature and configuring the output of the model as well. All right. Well, thank you very much. You can test these tools. Our booth is there.